Hello, everybody. What's happening? Chip Towers here, back for another edition of Towers Take, brought to you by Marco's Pizza, America's #1 pizza company, as you all know, because you come here regularly, and we so appreciate that. Speaking of Marco's, they got a great deal. It's the first time I've heard about it, so I'm going to have to read it to you a little bit. So apologize for reading. I will commit this to heart, and I expect you to also eventually. Say hello to a delicious double play at Marco's. Get two medium, two topping pizzas for $7.99 a piece. We've been talking about this here lately for Marco's. Everyday low price is $7.99 each. Order yours today from marcos.com. And if you haven't tried a Marco's pizza, you definitely need to try one. That's a great deal. Never mind all that. It is authentic Italian pizza. And if you tuned in to Brandon Adams' Dog Nation Daily podcast this week, you know that because you met the founder, Mr. Gianmarcos, a.k.a. Marcos, who came in and came through our studios, our offices in Atlanta, and met with Brandon. It's just a really cool story, and it really is authentic Italian pizza, and it's really cool, and it just happens to taste good, and they got a good deal on it right now. So thanks for hanging out here with me. We're here like we are every week for a half hour to answer your questions. That's basically what I'm here for, is to hear what you have to say and answer your questions to the best of my ability. And we will do that. I'll try to get you through some of the daily goings on first. Georgia baseball, that's what's going on right at this minute. So shortly after this broadcast, because I know you're going to not want to switch away from here, and there would be no point in it anyway, because Georgia baseball plays Arkansas at 7 o'clock. I'm going to try to get over there before it gets over. I'm talking to you here from my home office in Athens, and I'm not too awfully far from Foley Field. If you haven't been over there, you need to get over there in the next 3 days. The Diamond Dogs have a huge 3-game series. They are ranked, Georgia is, I think, number 15 or so. They might have moved up, but, more importantly, their RPI is in the top 10. It was top 5 before they lost 2 or 3 to Florida this past week. But a lot on the line for the Bulldogs. I'm getting your comments now, so I'll be able to take your questions. Be sure and put them in there. That first pitch, 7 o'clock tonight. You can hear that and see that in all the normal places. And, I hope you weigh in here on the Dog Nation Facebook page, which gets a lot of activity, and we monitor it very, very closely. So Georgia baseball is what's going on foremost right now. A sad week in, Dog Nation, as it were. The death this week of Andy Johnson. As I wrote in my Towers Take this week on dognation.com, if you haven't had a chance to read it, it's still up there. I didn't see Andy Johnson play. I've seen some of the highlights. There's some great highlight packages put up there earlier today by the UGA Vault folks, which had a lot of good footage of him playing. But, he was essentially a running back playing quarterback when Georgia ran the veer in the 1970s prior to Ray Goff. But, he was not just a good football player. He was one of those guys who could have done anything. Those who knew him and watched him closely, like Vince Dooley, Lawrence Smith, Ray Goff, Bill Hartman, a number of people that you were around them will tell you that he was one of the best athletes to ever play here, up along the lines of Charlie Trippi and Herschel Walker and, Jake Scott, Scott Warner, guys like that. This was the type of player that Andy Johnson was. He was one of Athens' own. So I knew him mostly in my, existence in this area of the state for the last 30 years or so, as a pillar of the community, a UGA letterman, a good businessman. All that kind of stuff. He was a terrific player. and just as humble as you could be. UGA Vault has some great footage of him speaking to, I believe it was to it was either Athens Touchdown Club or it is Georgia Hall of Fame induction. I've tried to get to your hellos here pretty quick. Hey, Trip Davidson, Justin Minton, Bo Hawkins, Randy Caldwell, Scott Horner, a lot of folks on here. I appreciate y'all being on here. For May, we're far removed from football, but there's always action. I've seen some comments and some questions here about Stetson Bennett. The main question being, is Stetson Bennett transferring? He's obviously contemplating that. He's discussed that with Kirby Smart, according to several published reports, and some of our own intel, Jeff Sintel and I. But we're not going to hound these people. We'll find out when they're ready for us to find out. And with Stetson Bennett, as I wrote earlier this week on Dog Nation in my Towers Take, I hope you got a chance to read it. It still should be up on dognation.com or on your handy app that I know you have on your smartphone. Stetson, that's not a small thing. A lot of people shrug that off. Third string quarterback, big deal. We have Jake Fromm and Justin Fields. That's what people are going to say. But 3 quarterbacks is the minimum that you need, and there'll be other walk-ons that Georgia has, even if Stetson does leave, and nobody can blame him if he does, because he's proven himself to be quite the good football player. He's been lauded by players and coaches for his work as a scout team player. We saw it in the G-Day game. Took a lot of snaps for both the red and black teams in the G-Day game. He's not a big guy, but for some it doesn't matter. I mean, Baker Mayfield's not a big guy. Drew Brees is not a big guy. You don't always have to be 6'3" or 6'5" or to be a good player. And Stetson Bennett, originally a legacy guy, came to Georgia satisfied with being a preferred walk-on, certainly hoping to compete and maybe win some playing time. And but once you get there and you kind of prove to yourself that you can hang, we can't blame him that he would want to transfer. Mike Anderson here saying, he's a scout quarterback, Chip. Just go out and get a graduate transfer and 2019 commit. I don't agree with you, Mike. I don't discount good players like that. I mean, they're not a dime a dozen. I mean, Bryce Ramsey was much more highly recruited than Stetson Bennett is, and I'm not saying Stetson Bennett is a better quarterback than Bryce Ramsey, but he's exhibited some traits that might be superior to that. So I wouldn't discount that. And I tell you who's not discounting it is Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart wants to keep him, and all indications are he offered him a scholarship to do that, which is saying something as tight as Georgia is on scholarships. So don't take my word for it. Take it from your head coach. That is how they feel about Stetson Bennett. Otherwise, mostly quiet on the Georgia front. I see a lot of recruiting questions on here, and as most of you know that are regulars here, I stay away from that. I don't mind discussing players that are coming in this last class, but I don't like to venture out into the classes of 2019 or 2020. Jeff Sintel is paid good money, and deservingly so, for monitoring those situations, and he knows how to do it. Yeah, Trip Davidson talking about Doug Flutie had a long and successful career. It's less, I don't know. I started to say it's less prevalent now than it used to be. Smaller quarterback. I mean, Fran Tarkenton was a great quarterback. It goes on and on. There are exceptions. Now, generally, bigger quarterbacks are great, are better for the NFL game for sure. But that, the NFL game is starting to get a little bit more spread out. Justin Minton, I need to, I got it. Forgive me. I'm going to be better prepared on these things going forward. It seems like I'm pushing it up right against them every week. I'm going to get better prepared for them, but we need a Justin Fields bell, just like we've had a Ben Cleveland bell in the past. He's a mere white bell. So I'm going to have 3 bells here. We're going to have, this is going to be a whole bell show. There's Philip Jordan Wells. Hey, apparently just tuning in. Is Bennett transferring? I don't know if there's been any news that's broken about it in the last couple of hours, but yes, he is considering transferring, and he may or may not. How about Tommy Bush coming to play this year? Randy Caldwell wants to know. Certainly, there's an opportunity for that to happen. Now, Tommy Bush has a lot of guys to climb past if he's going to do that, and that's not to say that it can't be done. I mean, Kirby has been fairly outspoken about not being extremely pleased with what he's seen from the wide receiver unit. Now, those of you who listen to me regularly, hey, Galen Jacobs, welcome from Macon. Know that I have a little bit more confidence in Georgia's wide receiver core than most people, but I do think there's some guys that got to prove some things. I mean, Terry Godwin was pretty beat up and hurt for the G-Day game. I think he's better than most. What is it? You always are on here is weighing in from Warner Robbins. Give me your enunciation of your name again. It's so spelled Yirya Isray. I can't even believe I attempted that. Yeah, that's the other thing. I don't know if we've discussed it, whether we discussed it last week or not, but D'Angelo Gibbs is back. And that's a big deal. I think we'll see. He too has some players to play to compete past in order to get into the rotation. But certainly, if you go on what he had done as a true freshman, you would think he certainly has that possibility. And get Sophistia says McCole Hartman is emergency quarterback? ? Yeah, man, I think so. Though Hartman didn't endear himself to Kirby Smart or anybody else with his pass on that reverse in the G-Day game. Woefully short ball ended up getting intercepted by Richard LeCount, who just about returned it all the way, if I'm remembering that correctly. I know you guys will let me know if I wasn't. But Kenneth Moody here telling us that Stetson is a hardworking kid who played baseball with my boy in Blackshear, really good athlete. Yeah, we've seen that. And, the gentleman here earlier who was discounting and saying, he's just a walk-on. You knew there'd be somebody who'd say that. And I promise I didn't pay that gentleman to come on there and give me a counterpoint. But you can't discount how important somebody like that is. He already knows your system. He already knows what you're looking for in terms of scout team, getting your defense ready. I keep looking this way because that's where your comments are rolling past for me. Again, now, I don't know if you can see it on the crawl, but I do want to emphasize. And hey, you guys need to try to do. I'm gonna challenge you. Having met Mr. Marcos, as everybody knows him, this past week, go on to Marcos.com and make you one of those order profiles, right? And order you one of these pizzas at the beginning of my broadcast. And I want to hear from people who get it, because they get it to you really quick. Now they don't, they don't have all the guarantees like some of these other people, because this is authentic pizza, but they deliver it to you, and it is really, really good. And right now they got a deal. They're calling it the Delicious Double Play at Marcos for 2 medium pizzas, $7.99 each. There it is on the, you can see there on the graphic. So get you a couple of those. And I didn't order mine beforehand here tonight, so I think I'm going to do that momentarily. And but I will be off the air by then. We only got about 13 more minutes. Get your questions in. Let me know what you want to talk about. What else is there? What about that talk about? Oh, so we were talking about the death of Andy Johnson. A great man, a humble man, great player. But really, the thing I think a takeaway that certainly up and coming athletes and hopeful athletes is people. Thank you, Lynn Green Christian, who said who's complimenting me on the article about Andy Johnson. Is so much more of your life is spent in pre and post college career. And, the NCAA bombs us every year with their statistics about how many people actually make it in the NFL. I think it's important to know that Andy Johnson was as good as there was in college football as he played in the early 1970s. And he played for 9 years in professional football, 8 of those in the NFL. But most of his life was spent doing everything else. And he was definitely a Renaissance man in that regard, family man, business executive, community leader. And that is, at the end of it all, really more important. You want great athletes, but you want good citizens too, and that bears bringing out that Georgia this week got I don't know if it's called an award, but it was certainly pointed out for being top 10 in APR. Very, very important. Georgia puts a lot of money into their academic support program, and they're like everybody else. You're scouring, the United States of America and Atlanta in particular, for excellent players who also happen to be excellent students, because it's very, very difficult to compete at the University of Georgia now, no matter what your system of support is. In fact, that Georgia, not only in football but in all their sports, in particular in basketball, got high honors in the APR regard. In regard to the APR for academics, and that is no small thing. And guys like Andy Johnson are great testaments to that. And we can sit here and check the list of great students and great players who come through Georgia who are doing other things now on a high level, whether it be in the media, in business, what have you. Kevin Butler last week was among those who graduated from the University of Georgia. So happy for my old friend Kevin, my old Redan Raider teammate, coming back to school when he really didn't need to, but it was definitely an emptiness, a void in him. He felt like he needed to fill in, and he did that. And I'm really proud of Kevin, and I know his family is. And then in typical Kevin Butler style, he tops his own accomplishment with bringing his first grandchild, helping bring in his first grandchild. So, hello, Greg Perlago is here now. David Rogers is watching. Appreciate you guys showing up. We started at 6, but that's okay. We're glad that you're here. Mike Anderson says Wallflower is a gray shirt. Won't see him till next year. I'm not 100% sure on that. The bottom line is Wallflower can't gray shirt. Okay, that terminology has been misused from the outset on this whole thing. I've been guilty of it. I parroted, what some other reports were early on, using the term gray shirt. You can't gray shirt once you've signed a letter of intent. Wallflower signed a letter of intent in February. Gray shirt is when you are asked to hold off on signing anything until you pay your own way a semester or two, and then they put you on scholarship after that. So that's not an option for Wallflower. I don't know if he's planning on going JUCO or prep or what. I visited with him a while back. It was too far back, and I haven't been able to get a hold of him. I probably may have a trip back down there to Liberty County to try to catch up with him on all this. But ultimately, we'll see the end of May. May 31st is when the unenrolled freshmen arrive. So we're not far away from that now, just a couple of weeks before all these guys get here. So we'll see. Charles is asking me about what my opinion is about what Brandon Adams talked about today with Fromm being ranked so high in the Heisman run. I mean, look, what happens when you do what Georgia did last year, or Clemson did, or Oklahoma did? When you make the college football playoff, there's only 4 teams. You get a lot of attention. People, it's not that players necessarily become better. More people notice your players. So I would imagine there is, Heisman hopes for a few people. I mean, don't count out DeAndre Swift and don't count out some of these other guys for national awards. Look at Andrew Thomas, who was a freshman All-American this past year. So, there's a lot of people, and that comes with the territory. Now, Georgia's got a long season to get through, before we start talking about Heisman trophies and the like. But certainly, if based on what we saw last year, Jake Fromm certainly should be in the conversation. He was one of uh, not many quarterbacks in the country who won 13 games last year as a starting quarterback, so that's pretty impressive. Susan Medeiros doesn't know what happened to Andy Johnson. Andy Johnson passed away this week. He a long, long illness. I think it was cancer. I'm not 100% sure of that. I'm fairly certain it was cancer. And he has passed away. Philip Jordan Wells wants to know if there's any news on Chigbu, what he has decided. I haven't. I haven't seen any new news on Chigbu today, but Kirby was pretty open about that at the end of spring. So I would imagine that's probably a done deal. It's just, they don't announce things in real time around here anymore. They kind of announce them when they want to announce them. So they'll hear that. Philip Jordan Wells also says that might be what's holding up Walthour from enrolling. Hey, nobody can enroll right now. Well, I take that back. I imagine some of these guys could try to come in for the Maymester, but most of them don't. June 4th, I believe, is the first day of classes for summer semester. I would imagine most of this class will be here then. There's 17 guys remaining, including Walthour. If Stetson Bennett ends up coming back on scholarship, I've got Georgia at 85, the max right there. So there's not much room to play with, but they have to get that all worked out before these guys are in. That is a real issue. Georgia's really tight on this, and we'll see. Robert Moody wants to know what the latest in Zamir White's rehab is. The last we heard was really, really good. As you know, Zeus's injury was not, terribly significant relatively when it comes to knee injuries. And so I would imagine I'm predicting a quick return for him, but also predict Georgia to be very cautious on that because this guy is a very, very special athlete. There's no sense in rushing him into the mix when you have others at the position as Georgia does. And real quickly, I want to get that Trip Davidson just informed us all that he's just had his last rounds of chemo after 6 months. So big applause. Let's give some thumbs up and smiley faces to Trip Davidson. Man, who among us doesn't know somebody who has waged that battle, and it's a very, very difficult one. And I both applaud and pray for anybody who is going through or has gone through that before. It's the scourge of modern day society, I would imagine, that and heart disease. And there's a lot of scourges out there, but hey, we got us another day today, and we all need to be thankful for that. We're getting close to the end here, so let's get your questions in now as quick as we can. Charles Felder wants to know, what is the one thing Georgia needs to improve more than anything else in order to have success this season? I mean, my biggest concern for Georgia this season, and this is, stop me if you've heard this before, is the defensive front. I mean, I don't think there's any question. I've often said this in many different formats, including this one. I think defensive line play is maybe the number one predictor for success. I mean, obviously strong quarterback play is big. All positions, football is the ultimate team sport. That's what's so great about it. Soccer, hockey, all of them have those elements. But I mean, football, in terms of the distinct roles that everybody plays, is the ultimate team sport. And I think Georgia's D-line is the weak link out of all that. And I hope they prove me wrong. I think it helped getting Jay Hayes to transfer in here. There's a bunch of other X factors of players we don't know all that much about. Devontae Wyatt, I was kind of disappointed that didn't see more or didn't see more distinguishable play from him in the G-Day game. But I think D-line is where Georgia has to improve considerably. And secondary play as well, though. Didn't you think? I mean, I thought Georgia's secondary comported itself quite well in the G-Day game. And look, that was against a Georgia offenses, both the secondaries, both the defenses, the red and the black, played pretty well against offenses that were designed to throw the ball a bunch and to move fast, and they didn't really quibble with a run game at all, which is why that might have not looked very impressive, but that was the intent on Kirby Smart and staff. And I might add, and I'm going to weigh in on this with the Towers Take this week, or question of the day. And let me remind y'all, please send your questions of the day into questionoftheday@gmail.com. You can see the address on our question of the day on the website, but I need to get more of those in there, and I can ask for them on social media or on Facebook, but get those in, because that's a daily feature we're doing now that seemed to be very well received, and I like doing it as well. But yeah, let's see. Who was it? Let's see. Jason Howell wants to know who's going to take Roquan's spot, and how about the Notre Dame transfer DT? Yeah, I touched on Jay Hayes earlier. I think Jay Hayes is going to make a difference, though. He's a 4-technique defensive end at Notre Dame. Going to be asked to play a 3-technique tackle here, I assume, or either a 5-technique defensive end at Georgia, though Georgia doesn't really need help there. But he's going to make a difference. And then, connected to defensive line play is linebacker play. Who's going to replace Roquan Smith? The answer to that, as you all know, is nobody's going to replace him. There's only one Roquan, and I would say probably Monty Rice is probably going to be it. There could be Dwayne Taylor and or one of these freshmen to come in, though. That's very rare for a true freshman to come in. We're right on it here. Cody Iscotti Arnold says only lost Atkins and Trent on the D-line. I think the D-line is one of our strengths. I disagree. It's depth is the issue here. And Trent and Atkins is a block of granite, dude. I mean, they don't have a proven nose guard right now. I am interested, having gone up there and meet him, and seeing how Jordan Davis fits in. This guy's huge. He is 6'8", counting his hair. Nearly 6'7", 345 pounds, I think he said, and he's coming to compete in that nose guard spot. I think that's really the most important. Tyler Clark's going to be okay, and Rochester, has to prove to me he can play that position at a level that John Atkins played it, and that's saying something. The New England Patriots happen to like it. All right, let's start to wrap it up here. We're a little bit past. Hey, be sure and watch the Diamond Dogs tonight as they take on Arkansas. I think you can catch it on the SEC Network. You can certainly read about it on DogNation.com. I have a Towers Take Up now on Mike Slav, the SEC commissioner who passed away this week. I posted that shortly before the show. Please go in there and read that. Click it. Let me hear your thoughts on that. I was very impressed with Mike Slav. I can't really call him a close personal friend, but he was like a friend to me. And if you read my column, you'll see what I mean about that. Let's see what else. The Marcos Pizza. We got a question here. Don't forget about that. Okay, they call it the double play, the delicious double play. 2 medium pizzas for $7.99 a piece. It's say hello to a delicious double play with Marcos. And I say it here every week, guys. Go to Marcos.com, set you up a profile, with your address and your credit card and all that kind of stuff in. And, man, you can get an authentic Italian pizza brought to you in a snap. They're all over the place. They got them here in the Athens area now, and they're popping up all over the South. I hope you got a chance to see the founder of that terrific company sit in with Brandon Adams this week. It's a great story, so it's a good company to support. and it's good pizza to eat, more importantly. That's going to wrap it up for me here. Thanks to everybody back in the studio. Nate Gettleman, Mark LeBlanc, Hannah Chalker's out today. I hope she's having fun at her personal retreat this weekend. And so for everybody at Dog Nation, there's lots to read there. Be sure to go to dognation.com. Be sure to download the Dog Nation app on your smartphone. And always check this page, the Dog Nation Facebook page. It will get you to all the good stuff all the time. So for Marco's Pizza, this is Towers Take, signing off.